My students and other trainees often ask me, should I exclude irrelevant experiences from my CV? They often think that all parts of the CV should be related to what the CV is used for. When a part of their experiences looks unrelated to the purpose of the CV, they tend to remove such descriptions. But would it be really helpful to exclude the experiences that appear to be not related in an academic CV? Let's talk about it today. Hi everyone, welcome to the Foundational Skills in Life Sciences podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Synaptologica. We discuss the skills that life science scholars learn, use, and improve throughout professional activities. Your benefit is expressed in my motto, learn the skills, enjoy academic life. First, a disclaimer. What I'm going to tell you is my personal opinion. It is possible that it does not apply to you in your own specific situation, in your own specific research field, in your program, in your own institution, and in your country. And each professor could have a different opinion from mine. So please listen to my comment not as definitive advice, but just as a starting reference. I hope my comment will serve you as a starting point for your thought. Last episode. In the last episode, episode 40, we talked about whether a short CV is better or a long CV is better in one common situation. You are applying for a research assistant position in a life science laboratory in a college or university. My thought was that, in general, a long CV would be better than a short one in academia. To be more exact, I would say that a detailed CV would be better than a simple one in academia. Today's episode is an extension of the same topic. Let's talk about today's question. My trainees often ask me whether a CV should or should not contain irrelevant experiences. They often think that all parts of the CV should be related to what the CV is used for. So, when a part of their experiences appears to them as unrelated to the purpose of the CV, they tend to remove such descriptions. So today's question is, will it be helpful to exclude the experiences that appear to be not related in the CV used in academia? I also found a similar question on an online forum, Reddit. I have responded to it, but my response there was brief. So I would like to comment on it a little deeper here in my episode. My thoughts. I have a personal but consistent view about CVs that are used at all stages of career in academia. I also mentioned it in the last episode. I would like to view the description in the CV during and after the undergraduate education as the defining statements of the person. They show what you did, why you did it, and they indicate what you intend to do in the long run. Whatever you have experienced in the past will be important to you now. Whatever you are experiencing now will be important to you in the future. So I would like to see a set of careful and detailed descriptions of key statements in a CV. Such careful descriptions will give me the good impression of an intellectually active person and the good impression of a careful writer and thinker. In contrast, a short and a simple CV will give me the impression that the person has not much to say about the intellectual or academic activities. This will not be a positive point, at least for me. This is my view of a CV, and my answer to today's question will be based on it too. Today's question was, will it be helpful to exclude the experiences that appear to be not related in the CV used in academia? Simply said, will it be really helpful to include all the experiences? My answer to today's question is, yes, include all the experiences in the CV in academia. I would not recommend excluding any experiences even if they appear to be unrelated. Let me explain my thoughts a little more here. My viewpoint: every experience can be relevant. There may be a part of your past experiences that could appear irrelevant to your main goal, for example, to apply for a research position in a laboratory, and to apply for a graduate school or a professional school like a medical school and a dental school. A specific experience could appear irrelevant to the reader of the CV or the evaluator of the CV if two things happen at the same time. One, if you describe an experience very briefly, for example, by adding only a simple list of things that you did. And two, if such an experience happened outside the field of the CV reader, so that the reader does not understand the details of what you did. What to do in a case like this? I would recommend two things. They will make a specific experience relevant to the CV reader. 1. Describe an experience in some details. For example, describe what you did and, if possible, for what purpose and what the results were. 2. Explain the skills that you acquired or developed and the lessons you learned through such an experience. If you focus on a field of the experience, your past experience could look unrelated to the purpose of your CV. But if you focus on the skills and the lessons you learned, they would be applicable for many purposes. The skills can be broad, for example, about nourishing new ideas, writing weekly reports, setting up collaboration, working with effective teamwork, guidance with leadership, and so on. Those skills could play unparalleled roles in your future work, and they could make you unique in comparison to other CV writers. Extract such skills and lessons from your past experience and write them down in your CV. 2 examples of experiences. Let's think about 2 examples of experiences that could appear irrelevant at first. Let's say you are applying for a research position in a university laboratory, which works on wet bench experiments in a life science field. You submit your CV, and the professor of the lab will read the CV and evaluate you. Example 1. Tutoring. In the context of today's episode, tutoring by a CV writer means that the writer, typically a student, helps other students understand the course materials and overcome some challenges of learning those materials. Tutoring can be on a one-on-one basis, or it can be provided in a small group format. Tutoring is often an important statement or a job description by trainees at early career stages, like undergraduate students at a college or university. I have seen a very simple statement in a CV. Quote, I tutored students at the school X. Close quote. But this statement does not mean much to me. Many CV writers and the applicants to research labs will write about their tutoring experiences. Tutoring is related to academic activities in general, but in this simple format, the statement does not seem to be directly related to research in a lab. Instead of a short and simple statement like that, how about writing in the following way? Quote, I worked as a certified tutor over 3 semesters. I conducted weekly tutoring sessions for 3 students enrolled in the courses X and Y. I explained the challenging concepts to the students. I prepared review slides for the materials, and I answered their questions, related or unrelated to the courses. In addition, I assisted the students write weekly reports based on a life science paper that the students chose and read in their courses. It was encouraging to know that my guidance led to their overall successes in the courses, improving their grades from C- to A+. This tutoring experience provided me with practical opportunities to improve my reading, writing, editing, and presentation skills. I also gained precious mentoring and communication skills because I tutored the same students for 1.5 years, and I adjusted my teaching methods based on the frequent feedback from the students. Close quote. In this improved statement, you are describing what you learned through the experience as a tutor. In addition, you have developed the skills that you might be able to transfer to scientific research. Such skills can include the reading, writing, editing, presenting, mentoring, and communicating skills. Example 2. Working at a grocery store. In another example, let's say you worked in a grocery store before. In a very simple format, a student can write, quote, I worked in a grocery store X for 1 year, close quote. Then a typical life science professor will think that this experience is not related to research in the lab. A grocery store and a research lab might not have much in common. So the description will be a waste of your effort and a waste of a space in a CV. Depending on a professor, such a description could have a negative effect on the decision about whom to hire for research. But instead of a short and simple statement like that, how about writing in the following way? Quote, I worked in a grocery store X for 1 year, from the date year to the date year. At first, I worked as a stocker. A stocker's role is to pay attention to the shelves, which show low stocks of the products, and when they are low, to place more products on shelves. It is also to maintain cleanliness, for example, by keeping the shelves and the aisles clean and organized. During this time, I assisted customers by listening to them, evaluating the situations, and helping them find products or answering questions. For this work, I personally received very positive customer feedback in both paper and digital forms on a weekly basis. I was then promoted to work in the customer service department to support customers and improve sales. During this time, I collaborated closely with the inventory department, which manages the inventories of the products to be ordered and sold. Such a communication often reflected the customer's opinions and requests, which was effective in responding to customers' demands and in satisfying customers. This 1-year work experience helped me develop 3 groups of skills. 1. Oral and written communication skills for interacting with diverse customers. 2. Collaboration skills for facilitating collegial work across multiple departments. And 3. Organizational skills for keeping clean work environment. In addition, I learned to work independently and also as part of a team. These skills and experiences might be effective in a research setting. Close quote. When a professor reads this statement, the professor might think, quote, oh, these skills will be helpful in my lab too. This person seems to be good at communicating with colleagues. Apparently, communication and collaboration are important within the lab and across multiple labs. Also, I have been saying to all of my trainees to order a chemical when the last bottle is opened. But some of my trainees use up the last bottle and they do not order the chemical from a vendor. The next person might want to use the chemical, but there's no bottle left for the experiments. This applicant seems to be very good at paying attention to details of how the experiments are run and how the lab can be maintained. This person will have a good impact on my trainees. They can learn from this person. And also, in my experience, the experimenters who can keep the lab environment clean, such as tools, chemical weighing room, and experimental benches, they will be able to perform careful experiments. I'm interested in this person. Close quote. Well, to be honest with you, I have no experience of working in a grocery store. So it is very likely that my description here is not realistic. But I hope you understand what I intend to say. Do not show a simple list. Describe the details of what you learned. No gap in your career. If a CV has a gap in the descriptions of a person's career, I will simply wonder why. Of course, there are some exceptions. I will talk about them briefly in the next section of today's episode. Other than those exceptions, I would like to see some detailed descriptions about any part of your career during and after undergraduate education. This includes the explanation about the so-called gap year. A gap year is often a time period after graduating from undergraduate institutions and before starting graduate schools or professional schools like medical schools and dental schools. Many students spend 1, 2, or sometimes more years doing something during those gap years. That something can be to have work experience, to volunteer in community services, or to take some courses to get ready for the next stage of a career. My students from Europe seem to have enjoyed international traveling during such a period. Personally, I would like to call it a growth year rather than a gap year. What did you do during the growth year? If they are not directly related to the purpose of the CV, again, emphasize what you learned. For example, if you went abroad and stayed there for a long time, you could write something like this. Quote, I stayed in the country X for 6 months. During this period, I volunteered in the local community services. At the same time, I volunteered in tutoring 5 students in English language development. This cultural immersion helped me grow in at least 3 aspects. 1. Improve language proficiency in the local language. 2. Deepen the understanding of different cultures, customs, and traditions. And 3. Develop the skills of intercultural communication with people from diverse backgrounds. Overall, this experience gave me a new international perspective and made me a more mature person. Close quote. There are many labs whose members have diverse backgrounds. Such a mature, well-rounded person might be a good fit for such a lab. Exceptions. We have been talking about detailed descriptions of the activities in a CV and leaving no gap in the career descriptions. But there can be a time when a student has to take some time off from many activities. For example, it can be due to the student's health conditions, student's economic conditions, students' family issues, and so on. I fully understand that they could happen to anyone. In such cases, I do not need to see the details. The description can be very simple and brief. For example, quote, I took time off during this time period because of my health conditions or family-related issues, close quote. This will be enough for me. No details are necessary. Comment. This comment is related to the disclaimer that I mentioned at the start of today's episode. Please let me add that my thoughts in my episodes would apply to academia, that is, to activities in colleges and universities in general. More specifically, my comments will apply only to life science activities in colleges and universities in the US. Under different conditions, the situation could be very different. For example, I heard vaguely that for job applications in the industry, a CV should be very short, for example, in the form of a 1-page resume, and non-related experiences and descriptions should be removed from it. I do not know if it is true, but if true, such a format will be very different from what we are talking about today. So please be careful when you craft your CV. Please consider your situation accordingly. If you're not sure, ask for advice from people who understand your situation better than me. This is the end of the main content today. Let's wrap up. Summary. Today, we talked about whether to exclude or include seemingly irrelevant experiences in your CV in academia. I've been giving my personal recommendation to my trainees. It is to include experiences, even if they are seemingly unrelated to the specific purpose of the academic CV. When you include these experiences, there's a way to do it. Instead of simply listing them, describe some details of what you did, emphasize the skills you developed from them, and connect them to the specific purpose of the CV. If you integrate these experiences into the main writing, you can create a more comprehensive CV, even if a part of your past experiences may not seem directly related at first glance. Your CV will highlight the valuable skills that you learned, and it will provide a unique perspective. It will also show that you are a careful and a thoughtful writer. Who can explain all the details in the CV? Only you can do it. Do not be apologetic. Be proud of what you did in the past. Be positive and creative in crafting your CV that is specific for your own purpose. I hope this approach will be useful for you. This is it for today. Your action. If you have questions about CV, please send me an email about them. We can discuss many things about CV. I'm planning to make a mini-series on CV later. My email address is ideas@synaptologica.com. Thank you for joining me in today's episode of Foundational Skills in Life Sciences. I'm Dr. Synaptologica. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.